Commission of Inquiry will continue hearing testimonies from intended beneficiaries of the failed Estina Dairy Farm Project. I'm now joined in the studio by our news reporter, Manqoba Nchunu. Manqoba, you know, it's interesting how the issues that are being dealt with here are really serious issues, but the biggest thing to come out of the hearings yesterday was about the chilies in India.
Of course, Desiree, that was one of the light moments of the testimony that we heard yesterday. Of course, you'll recall that before that, we'd heard of how these beneficiaries were ultimately let down by the government officials and how promises were made to them that, you know, they were going to benefit. And he says that, you know, when they heard the proposal that was made by government, in particular, the former Agriculture MEC, Mosebenzi Zwane, when he spoke to them at the meetings, the various meetings that they held, he says that, I mean, he was convinced, they were all happy. They thought, you know, this is legitimate, we are all going to benefit. And of course, he says that they were very disappointed at the fact that, you know, none of it happened. He says that, in fact, they were even promised that there was going to be a trip to India for those farmers to go and, you know, get to be trained in dairy milk production. Because Ephraim Dlamini himself, he was a red meat farmer, so he had cows already, but only producing red meat. But he says that he bought into the idea because of the promises that were made.
Sense.
You know, there were promises of even that, you know, they were supposed to be, they say they were told that there will be 52% share owners. And then the other 20% is going to go towards building schools, towards building clinics, and also improving some infrastructure in Frieda. So he says that, you know, when they heard this idea, they were sold. They were even advised that, you know, as red meat producers, they might need to sell their cows in order to have more shares. So that means if they want to grow their 52% share, you know, they could sell their cows, which most of them did. But he says, fortunately for him, you know, he didn't take that. He says that he didn't, you know, he can't, you can't really, there's a saying that he used, the Zulu saying, which means you can't name a child before they are born. So he says he was very skeptical from the onset. He wanted to see it take off first before he could actually buy into the idea. But obviously we know that some of them did sell their cows ultimately in that particular venture. But of course also the chili issue, saying that, you know, the promises that they were going to go to India, one of those promises didn't materialize. Of course, he says, instead, Zwane took his church choir to India, and that's where the whole chili story comes in.
But yet again, I mean, we had Spiwe Nyanda, Ngwakura Matlodi, and Riri Tlabi saying that President Jacob Zuma lied under oath. Mosebenzi Zwane has appeared at the commission, and now we're hearing that he lied under oath because he didn't take farmers there. It was a different story. How did the commission respond to this latest revelation?
Well, at this stage, Desiree, we are yet to hear how the commission will respond. But what I do know, of course, is that Ms. Tlabi herself has indicated that she wants to give testimony, to give a statement, and also cross-examine the former president on this. Mosebenzi Zwane also spoke at that gathering outside the last time. You'll recall when the former president appeared for the last day, there was an appearance outside at the Peter Ross Park, where he did indicate that, you know, they believe that, you know, the State Capture Commission is singling them out and is really there to, it's set up against them, so it's for them. So he says they will take example from the former president, they will appear. In fact, he said, we'll make it our home if that needs be, because we do respect the rule of law. So we're going to see how that will unfold as time progresses.
More supposed beneficiaries coming through today. How many of those are we going to see testifying, or how many are lined up to testify?
So far we know that it was 2, so it was Ephraim Dlamini, and then the next one who's coming on is Mr. Ngongwane, who's also expected, Mishek Ngongwane, who was also one of the intended beneficiaries, one of the 80 intended beneficiaries, who's also expected to give testimony today. He will be followed, of course, by the acting HOD, Dr. Takisi Masiteng, who has also been implicated in previous testimony by Jankelson as well as by Venter as being one of the officials who was heavily involved in this project. Of course, with allegations that he was also involved in the signing of dodgy contracts, contracts that literally handed over some of the assets belonging to Estina Dairy Farm to Estina, for free, literally for free. And we do know that Estina, benefited 136 million from this project, even though only 106 million was accounted for in the books. And it's believed that the other 30 million is the one that was ultimately laundered through Dubai to pay for that lavish Gupta wedding. So we're expecting to hear more from him on who gave the instructions and why really did he sign, because he did, there was evidence yesterday that he did also sign as a chief director then, signed some of those documents even though he was not obligated to, even though he was not legally obligated to. So we need, we'll hear more questions raised about the issues of those dodgy contracts between the government and Estina.
What's the latest in terms of the return of the former president? Are you hearing any word?
At this point, no, we haven't heard any word yet, but we do know that, the former president will be preparing statements that, of course, he will be presenting to give his side of the story to the commission. But when he's coming back, that at this stage has not been determined, or we're not sure at this point when that will happen.
What time do proceedings start today?
The proceedings will continue at 10 o'clock, and of course, Ephraim Dlamini will continue finishing off his testimony, and then after him, we expect the other beneficiary to also come in. That's Mr. Ngongwane.
Thank you so much for that update. Manqoba Nchunu, our colleague there, giving us a sense of what to expect from Parktown this morning.